Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us for this research webinar where we look at our Wave 1 research results from Aimpoint Research. We appreciate the opportunity to have you join us this afternoon. I think you're going to enjoy the presentation, and then there'll be an opportunity for questions at the end of the session. Tommy Batts is going to be leading our discussion here this afternoon as we go through this first round of research. And Tommy is a research analyst at Aimpoint and is the research manager for our project. He plays a key role in the design as well as the implementation and reporting of both quantitative as well as qualitative research for the clients of Aimpoint. Now, Tommy is a native of Michigan. He holds a Bachelor of Science in communications as well as business from Hope College, and then a Master of Science in Marketing Research from Michigan State University. Tommy, I've turned over hosting duties to you. If we have anyone that happens to join us late, if you'd go ahead and let them into the call, that'd be great. And we'll let you take over from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. It's a pleasure to join you all. I'm excited to present this research to you. Just trying to get everything set up here for Zoom. Okay. Yeah, glad to be here. Just as a for your knowledge, Aimpoint Research is a global strategic intelligence firm that blends best practices from military intelligence and marketing research to provide our clients a competitive advantage, particularly in the agri-food value chain. And this deck that I'm presenting to you today is the National Institute of Farm Broadcasting research for Wave 1. This is over 4 quarters, and so this is from the first quarter for 2021. So in Wave 1, we completed 202 phone interviews. The fielding lasted about 2 weeks. In order to qualify for the survey, respondents had to be a primary and or shared decision maker on their operation, have gross farm income over $100,000, have an ag radio station available in their area, and listen to ag radio during this time of the year. And then let's jump into what these respondents looked like. As mentioned, respondents had to be a primary and or shared decision maker on their operation. This shows what role they have in that decision-making process. So 47% were sole decision makers, 29% were primary decision makers, 22% decisions were made jointly by that person and other partners on that operation, and only 3% were making recommendations to the final decision maker. We had representation from just about every gross farm income category, with a large portion under $500,000 in gross farm income. The majority of respondents were over the age of 45, but overall, good distribution across each age group. We had a great distribution across all farm sizes. Listenership stays consistent during this time of year on each size of farm. These is, acres. There we go. The majority of respondents plant crops. So most plant corn and or soybeans, and there's a variety of others. These top, the blue attributes are the highest produced crops, and then a variety of others as you move down. There was a large portion of respondents who also raise livestock or only raise livestock, most of which are beef and or cow calf. We also calculated average head on the bottom chart, and those numbers generally fall in line with USDA averages, which is good. So moving into the bulk of the survey, we asked questions to respondents about their listenership habits and opinions. So farmers are listening about 5 days a week, so typically throughout the work week. 2/3 are listening at least 5 days a week. 68%, that's about 2/3 listening 5 or more days. Ag radio listener attention is somewhat fractured. That meaning where they're retrieving information from multiple sources. However, a large portion of farmers do listen to ag or farm radio on a daily basis. So ag and or farm radio is considered a daily news source for farm news, weather, markets, and ag information, more so than all other attributes listed. That being ag farm TV, ag farm publications, blog, websites. So these big pictures are the main sources for which people are getting their daily sources of ag information. And the bottom attributes here are where they are also getting information, just as not as much as these major sources. Ag farm radio, the largest. So here we took the last question. What are your daily news sources for farm news, weather, markets, and ag information? And tallied the average number of sources selected by age group. That shows us how many sources each age group is looking at on average. People use at least 2 sources for daily farm news, weather, markets, and ag information. Younger farmers and those 55 to 64 might use closer to 3 sources. This is going to be interesting to see play out throughout the waves. But generally, people are using multiple sources for retrieving their information for ag news. AM and FM radio are the top destinations for ag radio listeners. However, that varies by age. Younger listeners gravitate toward FM and AM and satellites, kind of all 3, but those over 50 gravitate toward AM radio. Nearly 1/3 of listeners have a satellite subscription. Of those that do, those with larger farms, those with over $500,000 in revenue, and those under the age of 50 are more likely to have a subscription. We also asked to follow up about where they have that subscription, and most have that subscription in their work and or passenger vehicle. Most ag radio listeners are listening in the morning, and then listenership drops off after 4 p.m. Generally consistent throughout the workday, though. When listeners tune into ag radio, most farmers are typically listening for 30 minutes or more. One group that does stand out, though, in this are those with over $1 million in revenue. So on those larger farms, they listen an average of 125 minutes. Many listeners listen to ag programming on Saturday. They tune in mostly in the morning. And then looking at this call-up box, the gray box here, those most likely to listen on Saturday are farmers over the age of 50 and farmers with revenues under $500,000 in revenue. Again, we can see that the length of time spent listening is at least 30 minutes or more for most ag radio listeners on a Saturday. And again, the average kind of reiterates that. So 43 minutes on average, which is more than 30 minutes a day. So it's good news there.
Tommy, this is Aaron. I apologize for interrupting. We have some folks in the waiting room that need to be let in, and since you are the host, we need you to do that if you could, please. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for calling that out. I believe we just let some people in. We are currently just walking through some high-level statistics on how people listen to the radio, time of day they're listening, and now we're moving out of when they listen on a Saturday. And just to reiterate the side, we see that length of time spent listening is at least 30 minutes or more for most ag radio listeners on a Saturday. So here we asked about the types of information one gets when listening to their local farm broadcaster. Farmers are most often receiving information on ag markets and or commodity prices and ag weather. However, listeners are also tuning in to listen to other types of information like local or regional ag news and world ag and trade news. And on the next slide, I'll kind of reiterate what that looks like. So like one of the earlier slides I showed, we took the last question, types of information received when listening to your local farm broadcaster, and tallied the average number of types of information. Types of information being things like the ag markets and or commodity prices, ag weather, ag news, etc. They're listed here below. And the amount of information types that farmers receive varies by age. We can see that on this breakout. If you recall from an earlier slide, younger farmers use a variety of sources to get their ag information, like ag radio, ag TV, publications, etc. And so as you can see here, younger farmers are receiving a larger number of types of information. So the thought there could be that the more sources you are seeking, the broader the information you are gathering. But overall, people aren't tuning in just to hear about ag markets and or commodity prices and weather. They're listening to the other information that you are sharing. Here we're looking at where people listen. So farmers are most often listening in their vehicle and or equipment, ag equipment. Listenership while operating farm equipment is higher for farmers aged 18 to 49. So that call out box here, slightly higher for younger farmers. And the next couple slides will be about perceptions of the broadcasters farmers are listening to. Most listeners believe the farm broadcaster who delivers their farm news, weather, markets, and ag information is credible, accurate, and timely. This question was asked on a 1 to 10 scale. So those with rating 1 to 6 are considered the lower raters, and those rating 7 to 10 are considered high. So the majority of farmers rated their farm broadcaster high. The average to the right reinforces this information. So this looks great for your local farm broadcaster. Farmers who are listening really value how you are credible, providing accurate information and timely information. And then comparatively, on the next slide, we look at national media outlets. So in comparison, most listeners feel national media outlets are not credible, are not accurate or timely. So the average for the last slide was over 8. Then here, the average is closer to under 5 or just about 5. We also asked about podcasts. Just over half of ag radio listeners have listened to a podcast of some sort. However, only 36% of all the ag radio listeners that were surveyed have listened in the last month. The more gross farm, I guess some more flavor to what that looks like. The more gross farm income a farmer has, the more likely they have listened to podcasts. The older a farmer is, the less likely they have listened to a podcast. So that's at 36% is the last month, 53 total. Of all farmers surveyed, just under a third have listened to an ag-related podcast in the last month. A few more slides. The music is on. There we go. Wait, let's see. Yep. So a large portion of farmers watch ag television. However, that changes by age. The older you are, the more likely you are to watch ag-related television. Similar to ag radio listenership length and Saturday listenership length, most farmers are viewing ag television at least 30 minutes when they are listening. The average shows that too. And outside of ag radio and ag television, listeners are often found online looking for news, weather, markets, and ag information. Most notably in the morning and evening, and younger farmers are most likely to use online resources, almost 20% more likely. Those younger farmers are found online much more often than the older farmers. And finally, we look at social media. Ag radio listeners are not typically found using social media throughout the week. If they are, they most likely are found on Facebook or YouTube. However, we don't know if this is ag related. This is just a general question. And similar to online, younger farmers are more likely to use social media sites than farmers over the age of 50. And that would conclude the presentation for wave 1. We're excited to jump into the next 3 waves and see how this kind of looks as we move across the year. Happy to field any questions.
Thank you very much, Tommy. Do any of our members have any questions for Tommy this afternoon? Or anything where you're wanting any additional explanation or background?
Tom, this is DeLoss at RFB Radio. I was just curious, do we have access to these slides, whether that's just for information? I don't know. Can we sell with them? You know, how can we use this information beyond this?
So this wave of research, and we'll do 4 waves throughout the year, representing a 3-month period. This research and additional research is going to be available. In fact, it already is available. If you're logged into the NAFB website, Then under the More tab, which is on the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see Research that shows up as one of those menu options. And this is the top selection that's on that page. Is the latest research from Aimpoint. It's Wave 1 from 2021, and you can download that there. We sure would encourage all of our members to utilize that research in any marketing presentations. We know that you're not going to use the entire 30-some slide deck, but pick out a few of these slides that you think will resonate with the with the audience that you're visiting with, and be sure to share them with them. I did have a couple of questions that came in on the chat window. One is the general geography that's covered by these respondents. This was a nationwide survey, and it's been done very similarly to what's been done in the past, making sure that we get a good representation from different regions of the country, really depending upon the number of the farms that show up in USDA's National Ag Statistics Service and Ag Census data. Anything you'd add to that, Tommy?
No, that's exactly right. I think we try to favor places that regions that had a strong showing of radio listenership. However, we did do a good job of representing the entire country.
Tommy,
go ahead, Taylor.
Tommy, this is Taylor Brown. What about the question on the Saturday listenership? How many farmers listen on Saturdays, period, compared to the farmer listenership the rest of the week?
Let me see if I can pull that up. So total farmers throughout the week. So our total respondents. That's 202 respondents. And that's representing all farmers. That was our quota for the research. So that'd be 117 people that said that they listened on a Saturday, and that 117 represents 58% of the total respondents surveyed.
So I'm just trying to get this in my head straight. So 71% listen during the week, 58% listen on Saturdays.
Sorry, so 100% listen during the week. 202, that'd be 100%, and then 58% listen on a Saturday. I said 117. That was just the break. That's 50. 117 is 58% of the total respondents.
Okay, so my question is we don't have a number that listen on Saturday. We just, I see the percent of the total.
You got it. Yep. Yep.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Taylor, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Jeff Brunstein here. We were occasionally getting some buys in Canada. In Canada, if you're thinking about programming, occasionally they will run some regular Monday through Friday sort of programming into Saturday. So, that's good that you guys kind of put that in there, because occasionally, there are avails there, and there could be programming there. So that's good that you guys kind of chose that. That's just a comment I had.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And Taylor, to add to that 71% that you're thinking of, that's the percentage that we're listening 4 or more days per week. Of the 202 that said they listened to farm radio at some point in time, then that 71%, I think if you look at any of those previous slides, that's the number that we're listing 4 or more days per week. Or there it is, 71% listen 30 or more minutes on a typical weekday.
There you go. Yep, good catch. I wasn't sure where the 71% was coming from.
Joe Gill had also passed on the question about podcast and how podcasts are defined. He said, is any audio posted online considered a podcast? In this surveying, Tommy, we didn't give a definition of podcast. We just asked about podcast, and whatever the respondent's perception is of a podcast is how they responded, correct?
Correct. Yeah, we didn't give a definition. We had talked about it. Our main goal here was to go off of previous research so we can look year to year. but we had talked about what it might look like to define things like podcast or streaming, etc.
And then another question that we had that came in through the chat was any special data on Twitter usage by farmers, and if it's used for what purpose? Again, on the social media ask, I know that was just general social media use. We didn't get into any specifics as to what they were doing on social media, just what their social media engagement was, and Twitter was exceptionally low.
Correct. Yep. So we did not do anything specific on what they might be doing on social media. So this isn't necessarily ag related. It could be, but we just don't know. And you're right, 11% is very low. And so that's 11% of total respondents use Twitter. So maybe around 20 people.
Are there any other questions that the members have this afternoon?
Tom, in the past, this is Gary Truitt. In the past, we've done this in person at the various shows we've been at. Looking back at that data, is there any difference that you're seeing, any trends in the difference between this kind of research and the in-person things we did at trade shows? Or, so are we noticing any differences, or are we noticing any consistent similarities that we're getting from what we got, in person 2, 3, 4 years ago versus what we're seeing in this telephone type of research?
You bet. So previously we'd worked with Millennium Research, and they did the surveying the same way that Aimpoint is over the phone. We had done some supplemental research then ourselves that wasn't as scientific at different trade shows, mainly at Commodity Classic, some at NCBA, some at American Farm Bureau Federation in the past. The one thing that we found that whenever we did those surveys at trade shows, even though it wasn't as scientific and as refined as the audience that Aimpoint's been able to define here in this surveying, is that what we did in person really reinforces what Aimpoint and what Millennium previously had found in their research findings. So the numbers seem to be really reflective of each other. Both our past history with Millennium, as well as what we've done through some of those intercept studies at different commodity groups and trade shows. Good question, Gary. Thank you.
Hey, Tom, I have another question. Now, this is going to go out to a lot of agencies, again, like Millennial. Is that correct? So they have the information at hand. And,
this is available to all of our NAFB members. And then, of course, we use this in our presentations and hope that our members will utilize some of these slides in too.
Which we will. Great. Thank you.
Tommy, Amelia Soroki from Northern Ag Network. I just have a question on this social media. Was Instagram not an option, or was it not answered?
We did not include that in the options that were given. And so we don't have data on Instagram. So we only asked about Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.
Thank you.
Yep.
I would kind of add into that as well. I've seen the total number of users that each one of those social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, claims to have as far as quote unquote subscribers. And I would say the percentages are very similar to what we see of people that are engaged in social media. Facebook is still the leader, YouTube right up there as well. Twitter is a smaller percentage, and Instagram is a smaller percentage yet of what you see compared to Facebook. Any other questions that folks may have this afternoon? Well, again, thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us. Remember, you can find this research on the NAFB website. When you're logged in, it's under the More menu on the right side of the screen. With the drop down, you'll see research there, and you'll be able to download this research pack as well as previous research that NAFB has done. There are 4 waves that we'll do in 2021, each one of these covering about a 3-month period or so. And we're looking forward to the next round of results that comes in from Aimpoint. Thank you, Tommy, for your time. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. And we'll look forward to catching up with you again soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Good to talk to you all.